Hey, what's up guys? Dr. D here with part 2 of the mixing tutorial. So let's get to it. What I want to start with today is mixing the drums. So popping back into the session here, one of the things you'll want to do is use reference tracks. It's kind of it's handy to have other recordings to reference as you're mixing, just to keep yourself in check. Next, I've brought in 2 reference tracks so that we can use those as a way of kind of gauging where we're at with our mix and have something to work towards. So I've listened through these tracks and listened to the drums and the bass and kind of gotten an idea of the sounds I'm looking for, as well as the other instruments. So I've picked tracks that have similar instrumentation, kind of like piano rock music. So let's go into our mixing of the drums. So starting out with the kick, I'm going to listen to both my kick beater and my kick front and see what I have going on. As you can see, I've soloed everything at once. That's because my groups are all engaged, and when I click on a certain group, everything in that group is selected at the same time. So I'm going to ungroup those and then start with my kick drum and listen to the kick drum. Okay. Okay, so I'm getting a fair amount of bleed into my kick drum mic from the snare. Not a big deal, but it would be nice to eliminate some of that. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'll circle back around for that, but I'm going to load in a EQ first and start to filter out some of the frequencies that I don't necessarily need. And I'm going to work with all the basic Pro Tools plugins, native rather than fancy ones. So I'm going to grab the EQ 7-band here. So there's that snare and that cymbal sound that's creeping in there. I'm going to use a low pass filter with kind of a pretty steep curve, and I'm going to try to eliminate some of that snare and cymbal bleed. So what I'm listening for is at the point, I'm trying to find the point where I start to affect the kick drum. I'm listening specifically to the kick drum and the brighter elements of it, and trying to find out where that that bright sound is sitting, so I don't deaden my my kick drum sound. I'm just trying to kind of roll off some of the other higher frequencies. All right, so that was decent. Let's do the same thing over here on my kick front. It's a little bit darker of a sound on the front of the kick drum. So one of the things I can do is I can copy my plugin over there. I'm basically going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to be using a low pass filter. So if I hold down Option and click and drag that plugin from slot to slot, I can add that to the insert on the next track. So starting with that, I'm going to open that up and listen. Okay, great. So I've gotten some of the snare sound out of that kick drum. Pretty decent. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is juice it up a little bit with some compression. So I'm going to grab the BF76, the Bomb Factory 76, which is kind of like an 1176 compressor here, using all the native plugins, and I'm going to get a little bit of compression going on. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my meter here. Nothing's moving, so I'm going to turn my input knob up a little bit until I start getting some attenuation. Okay. Brought up the volume a little bit. I'm going to try my attack at a slow setting, or fast setting, slow setting. It's kind of reversed on this plugin. Okay, adds a little bit of attack there. Then my release time. So I'm timing out the kick drum release time on this compressor to the space between the kick drums. And the release time is basically how quickly the compressor wants to recoil. So I'm kind of finding out where that is. It's doosh, doosh. I want it to kind of close and open, you know, kind of like rhythmically in sync with the kick drum. Okay, so I'm going to copy that plugin over here and work with my kick front. See where I'm at. Kind of listening to both sides of the attack. Release is pretty good. I'm getting about 5 dB of attenuation. Okay, cool. I'm also looking at my meters here. My kick drum volume-wise is pretty quiet still. You know, I'm getting around negative 20 dB. I could juice that up a little bit with the compressor on the output gain, but I'm going to do something different. So I'd like to have a little bit more brightness, and I'd like to have a little bit more dark, bassy sub-elements of my kick drum. So what I'm going to do to get that is duplicate my tracks. So I'm going to duplicate both of the kick drum tracks. I selected both of them. I'm going to hold down Option Shift, right click, and choose to duplicate. All right, so now I'm going to have a kick beater duplicate and a kick front duplicate. What I'm going to do with the kick beater, I'm going to go for kick bright, and then on the kick front, I'm going to go for kick sub to get those lower frequencies. Okay, so I'm going to go focus in on the kick bright. And what I'm going for here on the kick bright is obviously the bright end of the kick drum. So I'm going to use a high pass in addition to my low pass and try to really carve out the beater sound here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I've carved out a lot of the bright elements. I've got compression going on. So I'm slowing my release time down so that the compressor stays closed. I want more of the attack. I don't want boom. I want pop, pop. I'm going for pop here. So with a longer release time, the compressor stays engaged, which turns the volume down. It compresses, and then it keeps the sound quiet as it slowly rises out. So that's what I'm going for with that. I'd like it to be a little bit brighter, so I'm going to try this. I'm going to grab a distortion plugin of some sort. Sans Amp is one that's pretty native to all of the Pro Tools DAWs that I've been on lately. So let's go with the Sans Amp. Get some more crunch and drive maybe. Oh geez. Get the lows down. Okay, cool. So one thing that's bumming me out about that is that snare sound. It's just really intense. So I'm going to try a gate and see if I can gate out that snare. All right, so under Dynamics, I'm going to find the gate. Let's see, what's the native plugin here? I think we're going with Dyne 3. There we go. The basic native gate plugin here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this fired off. And I need to adjust the threshold. Okay, so I've been playing around with the threshold, the attack and the hold. The attack, I want this to be kind of short. I want it to engage as soon as the kick drum hits. So I want to get the initial punch of the kick. I was messing around with the hold, which basically is kind of like holds the gate open, kind of similar to release. So timing it so that it closes before I hear more cymbal or snare noise. And that seems to be working all right. Okay. All right, sweet. So I'm going to go on to the kick sub here and see what I have going on with my low end of my kick. Okay, so I'm going to roll off even more of the highs. All right, I'm going to try to find, with a notch filter, kind of where the epicenter of that low subby kick element is. There we go. There's some stuff down low, around 100. All right, so that's a really deep, low, subby sound, and I can probably exaggerate that with the attack or the compressor. So I want this compressor to recoil a little bit quicker. Okay, cool. All right, sweet. So what I can do now is turn down that bright and low kick drum, solo all of these kick drum tracks. I'm holding down shift to do that. So my kick beater, it's got that. Kick front. We'll start with the kick front. Bring in some kick beater. Okay. Now, to fatten it up, I can add some kick sub. Gets a little bit warmer. Okay, and then some of the bright attack of the beater in there. Okay, cool. So at this point I have 4 kick drum tracks. It's a great way of enhancing your kicks, is just duplicate them and then carve out everything and compress the heck out of it to really accentuate the elements that you're missing. So at this point I have 4 kick drums. That leads me to want to create a sub mix of my kick drum that kind of precedes the drum sum. So kind of like a kick sum, if I'm continuing with that same name scheme. So I'm going to create a new track. Mac is Command Shift, or maybe Control Shift on a PC. Command Shift N for a new track. I'm going to create one stereo auxiliary input track. That's going to pop in right here after my kicks. I'm going to call it kick sum. And I'm going to route that kick sum track output wise. I'm going to route the output to the drum bus. Okay, so that sends the kick drum sum to the drum sum over here. Okay, cool. The input of this is going to need to be a new bus. I'm going to have to create a new bus and call it the kick bus. So I'm going to use the next available bus and call that kick bus. Boom. All right, cool. So now I also have my kick drum tracks currently are being sent directly to the drum sum. You know, the outputs all say drum bus. I want the outputs of these kick drum tracks, though, now to be fed into the kick drum sum track and then into the drum bus, so I'm not sending the signal twice. So with that selected, Option Shift, I'm going to change the output to be the kick bus. Now, after I solo safe, got to solo safe my aux input tracks. Now I've got those kick drum signals sent into my kick sum, and now they're coming out of the drum sum. Pretty strong signal, strong-ish. I'm going to make it a little bit juicier, a little bit fatter with another stage of compression. So on the drum sum, I'll probably throw on a BF76 again. And let's see, maybe a little bit more attenuation. There we go. Okay, cool. Got a little bit stronger of a signal there. Wow, it's really slamming. Okay, cool. Still getting a lot of that snare bleed, but once the snare drum I think is mixed in, it's not gonna bother us too much. Okay, so on to the snares. Let's see what we got going on in snare world. Snare top. Got some cymbal bleed in there. A little bit of kick, but no big deal. That's really sizzly. Okay, cool. So let's do the standard stuff of EQ and then compression. Okay, so I'll probably mute the compressor first. All right, so with my EQ, I'm gonna basically get rid of sounds that I don't want, maybe fish around for sounds that I like and enhance them a bit. So we'll start with that. Cymbal sounds, don't want those as much. Just use a low pass. Listening to the snare. A lot of cymbals are going to be bleeding into the snare. Oh well. It'll be alright. Okay, I think that's a decent amount. And I don't really need low frequencies too much. Try to get some of that kick out of there. Okay, I don't want to affect the snare drum too much. Now I can kind of use one of my notch filters here with a narrow Q and fish around for elements of the snare that I'm not really digging or I'm digging. So there's some boxiness around the 500. I'm going to duck that out a little bit. Get another one of these notch filters up here. There's also some nice stuff up there around 4K, some sizzle. So I might boost that a little bit. Okay, cool. On to compression. See what I have going on here. First, let's get some attenuation happening. Okay. And maybe attack time very quick. Slow attack. Probably in the middle of the road. Middle of the road with that. All right. Let's go on to the snare bottom. Same deal. I'm just going to copy these plugins over and save myself a little bit of time because I'll probably be repeating some of the same moves, the same settings here. Let me mute this plugin. There we go. All right. Here's the EQ. Let me remove a couple of these things and just see where I'm at. Start over. Okay. It's not bad, honestly. Don't really need to. Could take some of the lows out. Okay, let's see what's up with my sizzle. Okay, I want the bite. I want that 4K bite a lot. None of that stuff really bugs me too much. So I'm just going to leave just basically a little bit of a high pass filter on that. All right. Let's get the compressor on. So it's just kind of exaggerating that a little bit. Listening for the attack. Okay, cool. So now what I can do is kind of throw the snares in together and mix them to taste. So I'm going to start with my snare top. Kind of a darker sounding snare, but when I bring in that snare bottom, Okay, cool. So getting the snares and the hi-hats, or snares and the kick drums to sound good. One other thing I'll mention here is we need to check phasing. So on kicks and snares specifically, because we're using multiple mics to capture these sounds, we're going to need to really zoom in here and look at the waveforms and see what is going on as far as like positive and negative movements on these transients. So I'm looking way zoomed in here at the kick drum beater, and as I look at the beater, I'm going to rearrange these a little bit. So I've kick bass, kick beater, kick bright, basically they're the same thing, and it looks like my waveforms are a little bit off. So what I can do here is, as long as I have room at the beginning of my session, which I can create by deleting some of the earlier parts of the drum waveforms here, is I can get way zoomed in and take a peek at my waveforms and see what's going on with my phasing. This might help the tone a little bit. So as I look at this, we're a little bit behind, it seems, with the kick front. So I'm going to scooch these forward a little bit to match with the kick beater and see if that changes our tone a bit. Listen to all these. If I undo that, I kind of like it this way. A little bit tighter. Got my waveforms a little bit more lined up. So I need to do the same thing with my snares. So soloing my snare and looking here at the waveforms, I can see that, hey, one's going negative, one's going positive. They're completely out of phase. So to address phasing, most plugins have a phase switch on them. So I can find one, of course, here on the EQ7 band. There's a phase switch right there. So I need to phase switch one of the snares so that they're flipped and the polarity is now matching. So we can listen to that, see if we hear the difference. Yeah. Okay, cool. So on and on, here we go. So hi-hats, we got hi-hats next. Let's see where we're at with hi-hats. Not hearing a lot of hi-hat, not doing a lot of hi-hat yet. Clicks. There's some hi-hat. So I'll kind of hang in there for a little bit, loop that section, and grab an EQ. So hi-hats are a high frequency sound, don't need a lot of low end. Probably get everything out of there below 500. And maybe fish around for the specific frequencies that I might want more or less of. So there's some nice chick sounds around like 8K, 10K. Might want to pop those out a little bit. Get a little crispiness in there on that hi-hat. And then, what the heck, let's see what happens with a little compression. There it is. So that's fast attack, slow attack, I think. Okay, middle of the road. Quicker release because it's a rhythmically, I want that needle to dance back and forth rhythmically in sync with that drum. Okay, cool. So let's go to toms. Toms are always fun because sometimes they're seldom hit. Using a gate on a tom is kind of a nice way of keeping the tom from just being a random open mic that bleeds the rest of the drum kit the whole night. So let's see where toms are being used. Ooh, what's going on with that rack tom? That's weird. There it is. Okay, I heard some rack tom being hit. Nice. Let's go back to where that was. So I can kind of look at the waveforms, see that I'm being hit right there. Okay, cool. So that's going to help me gate this. I'm basically going to gate the tom, both the floor tom and the rack tom. I'm going to grab a gate. Well, yep, grab a gate here. Dynamics. Dyne, expander gate. Okay, I need that to basically stay open a little bit longer, so release time needs to be longer, hold needs to be longer. There we go, it's a little bit more natural. Maybe quick attack. Threshold down a touch. Maybe up a touch. I don't want it to get triggered by snare and kick. Boom, okay. I think that'll work for me. I could EQ that a little bit if I'm not happy with the tone. I'm not going that far right now. I don't really care about tom sounds. They kind of sound how they sound. Need to find some floor tom. So I'm looking at the floor tom track and trying to find somewhere that the floor tom is hit. Maybe right here. There's floor tom. Boom. Okay, cool. So get a little loop going there. I'm going to copy that gate on over to the floor tom. Nothing's happening. I might need to lower my threshold. There we go. Okay, a little bit less threshold. It's gotta be able to differentiate between the bleed sounds and the actual hitting of the tom. So if a little bit bleeds in there, no big deal. Another thing you can do here is you can literally just trim out all of the waveform that's not being played. So sometimes I just do that. I'll just, if the toms only hit like during a few sections of the song, like it kind of seems to be here, I might just carve out all of the sounds around these, but I can at least see if the gate's working. Okay, that's a weird sound. I don't know what that is, but that's got to go. Okay, some tom there. Nope. All right, and looks like some tom at the very end. So a lot of this stuff in the middle I can almost just totally carve out. Okay, there's something there. It's just really just noise. So sometimes I just do this rather than using a gate. At least it tightens things up a little bit and makes sure that I'm only getting floor tom when floor tom is happening. So floor tom's a little weak there. I might blow that up a little bit with a compressor. BF76. Find that loop again. There we go. A little bit more juice. Boom. Okay, cool. I think that'll work. All right, so overheads now. Let's see what we got going on for overheads. So one of the things I'll do is look at phasing on the overhead mics. I'll zoom way in here and just kind of see where my transients are in comparison to the actual close mics. So usually there's a bit of a delay between when the snare drum hits or kick drum hits or something, and then the actual overheads pick that up, which sometimes can cause a little bit of phasing. Gives you some room ambiance, but sometimes phasing is an issue here. So what I might do is scooch this up a little bit. I can see where my waveform on the snare drum hit is and where the waveform is with the hit, the waveform of the high overheads. So I'm going to scooch that up a little bit and just kind of give it a listen. Might need to make some room at the very beginning of the track. Yep. Okay. Back in. Overheads. Let's find a snare hit. It's a kick hit. Let's find a snare. There's a snare. Okay. So I can see where I'm a little bit late. I'm going to scooch this up and just give a listen and see what it sounds like. If it's a little bit better. It sounds a little bit more crispy. Like just tighter. A little bit of a discrepancy between the distance of the two overheads. I might scooch that a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to pan it apart and listen to it in stereo. Just make sure I'm not hearing any weird phasing between left and right speakers. Okay, sounds pretty decent. All right, I also have a room mic. Let's listen to that. And I'm gonna, maybe to do this, I'm gonna solo the entire drum kit. And just see what that room mic sounds like on. Oops, I guess I can't do that. Undo that group. Redo that group. And there we go, fader. Okay, another thing you can do with the room mic, obviously the room mic's going to be far away from the source of the sound, so I might need to compensate by moving that waveform up so that there's no weird phasing. See if I like it. You can always leave phasing in, but it's good to try correcting the phasing and see, just to see if you like that sound a little bit better. Phasing can basically defeat the volumes of certain frequencies, so if I can line these up a little bit, we might have better sound. Let's see. Maybe I listen to the overheads and the room mic together. That might be a good way of comparing room tone to closer mic tone. Okay, that seems to work all right. Okay, great. So, I'm going to use the room mic and the overheads to kind of like create the spatial mix and then kind of build things in from there. So I'm going to leave the room mic at, kind of halfway up, leave my overheads all the way up, and I'm going to drop the faders on everything else. That is everything else being the snares. Kill the snares. I'm going to kill the kick, some, hi-hat, toms, and leave the overheads up. And then solo all the drums. Find some drums here. There we go. Okay, it seems like my right speaker is a little bit louder than my left speaker on my overheads. I might compress these. Okay, some light compression on both, but then I'm going to turn down this right speaker output gain to to match. Now I'm kind of a little bit more similar in volume between the left and right channels. Still getting compression, still kind of filling out the room. Oh. Get back to 0. That group thing, it'll get you. Okay, now I'm going to bring in and fill in the rest of the band with the kick sum. Bring in some snares. Can't really hear hi-hats and toms so much yet, but I'll move those up and then find a spot in the song where I've got some hi-hats and toms playing, hopefully. Where's hi-hats? Where's toms? Here's some toms and hi-hats maybe. No, over here. So kick and snare are the most important things of the drum kit. Everything else you can kind of take or leave it, but definitely when I turn this down, I want to hear kick and snare pretty well. Maybe more subby low end on the kick. There's my kick sub. Okay, cool. So yeah, getting the drums kind of happy there. Next thing I would do is probably switch on over here to one of my reference mixes and just see what I'm hearing on some of these recordings I chose and compare the two. Wind started blowing, set me on the roadside for me. Okay, I feel like I'm in the ballpark there with the tone of the kick, snare. As I add in more instruments and continue mixing this, I'll start to hear more stuff and EQ overall drums, high-end, low-end kind of things that I hear in kind of more of a general way. But the drums are kind of more or less kind of dialed in and balanced with each other to start with. So one other thing I like to do with drums is I like to do some sort of parallel compression of the overheads in the room mic, like really heavy compression. So I'm going to create one more auxiliary input channel here. I'm going to put that after the room mic. So I'm going to do Command-Shift-N, create one stereo auxiliary input track, and I'm going to call this drums parallel. And I'm going to feed the output of this into the drum bus. And I'm going to create a new input bus that's going to be called the parallel bus. So I'll grab the next available stereo bus and call that parallel bus. And then I'm going to feed into that from the sends. So I'm going to send into that probably kick some, snares, and overheads and room. And I'm just going to compress that crazy. So let's do, I said drums, the snares, I'm going to do overheads and room. I'm going to create a send in the next available send slot on one of these. That send is going to be the parallel bus. I'm going to expose that, and then on the drum parallel track, I'm going to put a compressor and feed this in there. Set all these to unity. So if I hold down Option and click on the faders on the parallel bus, I can bump that up to unity and close that so it's not in my way. And then feed this into here. Get a decent amount, good strong amount of compression, ratio-wise. Like over-the-top compression. Okay, and then what I do here is I mix that in parallel with the rest of the band. And I might pull out some of the kick, to be honest, and maybe just use this as like drum room sound, more so of like the overheads. I don't usually put kick in there, but I thought I'd try it this time. I'm not really liking how the kick interacts with the compression. Everything's squashed and pumping, so the kick is just making it pump. It's a weird little pop in there. Gotta figure that out. I feel like my overheads are a little weak. Get a little bit more overheads going. Balance those out stereo. A little bit more overhead, and then my drum parallel. So it kind of brings in this huge like wall of sound with the cymbals. Yeah, so we'll call it there for part 2 on the drum mixing, or the recording mixing, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.